You're watching Good Morning Britain. Shall we have a look at the front pages this morning? Now, The Times has finally said that the time has run out for Theresa May. She's expected to resign as the Conservative leader today, clearing the way for a new Prime Minister, they predict, by the end of July.
The Daily Mirror says the government is in crisis and Mrs May will announce her departure from Number 10 today to avoid the humiliation of being kicked out of her party.
And it's also the lead on the Daily Telegraph. They say the Prime Minister must finally confront reality today after the Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, told her he was withdrawing his support for her last chance Brexit bill.
So here with us, broadcaster and political commentator Iain Dale and former Home Secretary Jacqui Smith. Well, we do have to be careful what we say, because voting restrictions for the European elections have still not been lifted. Obviously, our voting here in the UK took place yesterday, but voting across Europe isn't complete, so we can't start talking about
They're very
those
easily led by us,
until Sunday at 10 o'clock. Yeah, the Germans always do what we say as regards Europe. But looking at
hanging on the words me and Iain to
absolutely. You might be surprised, you two. You might be surprised. We're going to stick with the rules just to be on the safe side. So looking at the front page of the Daily Mail, many papers saying this is it. May is going to go today. That's it. But I noticed in their first line they say, barring a last-minute change of heart from Theresa May. Hasn't that sort of been the problem all along, that even though everyone's saying she must go today, she may still not?
She's hung on, hasn't she? And
squatters' rights.
I thought that when I saw that somebody briefed, well, she might not necessarily go. She might continue to try and get her deal through. And I've always said this is a woman who's got enormous staying power. But it feels to me like, you know, when you have those chases through a city and the person finally ends up going down an alleyway from which there really is no escape and no, you know, and they have to try and clamber over the wall. She literally is in that alleyway now, and I can't realistically see there's any way out.
And Graham Brady's at the other end, and he's nearly caught up with
chasing
her.
her down.
If she decides, no, I'm not going, she will be toppled by the 1922 committee. They will change the rules, and they will then have another vote of confidence. And I'm afraid that's her gone. So I think she will go today because it will be the dignified thing to do. And she'll get a lot of sympathy from people.
Apart from the fact that we understand that the 1922 committee don't want to be seen as the men in grey suits that topple another female Prime Minister, I did the Mark Thatcher, and the members of the cabinet, nobody in the cabinet wants to be seen as the one. So is there a chance she could sort of get between the two?
No, because...
No,
simply because she's put this bill now for, we don't know actually what's in it, but Andrea Leadsom knows what's in it, and that's why she resigned. Jeremy Hunt and Sajid Javid have both said they cannot support it. Well, when you've got two of your three major offices of stakeholders saying that they can't support it, it is dead in the water.
How has she drawn up a bill that, like you say, some of her major supporters can't
Because what
follow?
she did in Cabinet, she oversold it in Cabinet, and she left the Cabinet thinking one thing and then went and announced another. And it's not the first time she's done this. And up to now, they've all put up with it. But this time, they're putting their foot in the ground and saying no further.
And the suggestion is that it includes some sort of customs arrangement and a rather sort of feeble promise to allow MPs to vote, to have a confirmatory vote. Well, they could have done that anyway, frankly. That's the way that Parliament works. But presumably she put those things in because she thought that's the way that I might get Labour support.
Yeah.
But the response that she got, Ian's right, the response she got from her own cabinet was pretty condemnatory, and she hasn't managed to really win over any Labour votes.
And she even managed to offend David Mundell, the Scottish Secretary, that nobody's ever heard of. But he said, well, if you do this, you're encouraging the SNP in a second referendum. So he's an ultra-Remainer. So yet again, she's upset the Eurosceptics in the Cabinet and the Remainers.
So, I mean, so it comes down to when she goes. That's what we're saying, not if, absolutely when.
What will happen, I imagine, you can play this back next week and say I got it wrong, but I think what will happen is that she will formally announce her resignation on June the 10th. So she goes through the Donald Trump visit, the D-Day commemorations, and then the following Monday, that's the day when the Tory leadership contest is formally triggered. And then she will stay on as Prime Minister until a new leader is elected, and that's likely to be end of July, beginning of August.
There were rumours last night that she could even go this morning, though, Jacqui. I mean, lots of people speculating that, do you know what, that's it, she wants out.
I think the suggestion is that she might say this morning that I'm going to go from, we'll start the campaign to replace me on the 10th of June. So she'll remain as Prime Minister. I mean, she needs to remain as Prime Minister, essentially, throughout that election campaign anyway, doesn't she? Because the country needs to have a Prime Minister.
I mean, there was a suggestion that David Lidington would take over for that. And it may be that she's decided, actually, you know, I'm just going to go. I don't think that will happen, but it is a possibility. David Lidington was supposed to be on a visit to Yorkshire today.
Yeah, just seen your tweet,
and that's been cancelled. And he's been told he's got to stay in London. Well, I think we all know why.
You can trust Iain Dale, incidentally, on these prophecies, because he prophesied in 2016, didn't you?
Come on, give us your prophecy.
I'd completely forgotten about this, but somebody tweeted me this yesterday. And on the 20th of February 2016, this is what I wrote. And this was, I think, before Boris Johnson had declared to...
Give us the date again, the 20th
of February.
2016.
I said, the stars are aligning. 1, Boris declares for Brexit. 2, Boris becomes leader of the Out campaign. 3, Brexit wins. 4, PM resigns. 5, Boris becomes PM. Now, admittedly, I did think that would happen in 2016. But at 3 years on, I can still say I was right.
You'd get much better odds on it back then than you would now, though, of course. But that, I mean, but here we are, Jacqui, and it feels like all those things that Iain predicted were going to happen, albeit a few years ago, are coming to fruition.
It certainly looks as if the front runner at the moment to replace Theresa May, whenever she goes and whenever the competition comes, is Boris Johnson, which, if you think about the position that he was in, the last time that he fought a leadership campaign, even 6 months ago, when really he'd been written off after a pretty unsuccessful period of time as Foreign Secretary, after not being the first to resign over the Chequers deal. Remember, David Davis was the first person to go about that. And yet he's come back to the forefront.
I mean, what you probably couldn't have predicted is the degree of difficulty there's been in trying to come up with any kind of deal. I mean, I think that is kind of like outfoxed anybody why we are in the mess we're in. But even with a new, you might have done, because I think you were warning that on the Remain side.
You know, it's like trying to take an egg out of an omelette. Let's not forget that.
Indeed, But here we are now with Theresa May, if not going today, then perhaps within the next 24 hours announcing when she's going. Is there going to be any more clarity with a new leader?
Well, I think this is the challenge for all of the potential contestants in this contest. They will have to lay out their plans to either renegotiate the withdrawal deal or what they want to do.
Because the problems haven't gone away.
They haven't gone away. And part of the reason why it has been so difficult is because we've been so bad at negotiating. And if you look at the BBC4 documentary, Brexit Behind Closed Doors, it's essentially a fly-on-the-wall documentary about Guy Verhofstadt and Michel Barnier. And you listen to their conversations and the contempt with which they hold our negotiators. And it's quite clear they were willing to give away a lot more, but they weren't even asked to.
No, and they're bewildered as to why we've refused to do certain things and accepted other things.
One of the problems with the I do think it's inevitable that there'll be a change in Tory leader and therefore a change in Prime Minister. And in some ways, what the Tories might want to do is to make that, and some of the contenders certainly do, to make that a slightly longer competition. But all the time that the Tories are arguing amongst themselves about who's going to be the next Prime Minister, we're moving towards that 31st of October.
What happens in that period?
I think that ship has sailed. There was a thought that the leadership contest would go on till October, so you really test the candidates. But I don't think the country will wear that. And the idea now is to have a much shorter contest, where you have the parliamentary rounds in June, and then they have 11 or 12 hustings all around the country.
So if we say
July.
6 weeks, if it can be done, the quickest it can be done is 6 weeks. That's still six weeks
yeah.
where we don't have the really important part of this deal being a bit hammered out. So we do actually leave in October, and we don't leave.
Well, I don't think we will leave in October. I think this will drag on.
Will they extend it again, though? Because they've said that they won't extend it again.
Well, they've said that before, haven't they? And in the end, they don't want no deal. I think we're moving to a situation now where if Boris Johnson or Dominic Raab are elected, the sort of hard Brexiteers, what we will find is they will go back to the EU and say, well, you offered us a Canada-style free trade agreement right at the beginning of this process. We want to go back to that. And we want to start negotiating that now. We will have a withdrawal agreement, but it's got to be in that context. Now, I don't know whether they'll be successful in that, but I think that's where we're heading. It's not actually starting from scratch, because a lot of the withdrawal agreement, a lot of the things are fine. Brexiteers can sign up to them. Everyone can sign up to them. But there are aspects of it which I just don't think a new Tory Prime Minister who comes from that wing of the party is ever going to accept. And the EU will have to deal with that political reality as well.
Although a new Tory Prime Minister doesn't change the arithmetic in Parliament,
No,
and they
that's
still
true.
need to convince both all of their own plus the DUP, because I can't envisage a situation where with that type of leader, Labour is going to come anywhere near supporting what they come up with. So there's still a massive challenge. And meanwhile, the country is in the mess that it's in, whilst the Tories argue amongst themselves.
In the meantime, it feels to those of us sort of on the outside of it, the sort of nitty-gritty of doing these deals, as though we sort of lurch from farcical to farcical, farcical. And in Austria, where they have their own political challenges going on, there is a scandal surrounding a group that went to Ibiza, got caught out to try and make a deal which may or may not be a dodgy deal. And because of that, the Venga Boys going to Ibiza became a protest song against these politicians and is now in the charts. It feels like they're suggesting it could be the hit song of the summer. So we wondered if there was a song that summed up our politics right now that could possibly, I don't know, dominate the clubs across the UK this summer. What are your thoughts?
Seems very.
I know you go to them a lot,
Dominating
Iain.
the clubs, is it? Of course.
What were you thinking, Jacqui?
I was thinking, don't leave me this way.
Oh, I love that.
I can survive, I can stay alive.
Thank you. Somebody sounds found it to stop us singing it anymore. Well done. Well done.
Who was that? Is it Who sang this?
Who's it?
Communards.
Oh, Communards, of
Of
course.
course it was the Communards. I just looked at you then, Ian, and thought, of course it was the Communards.
Suddenly, that was a death
There was there.
That was a serious death
because they are a very well-known pop act,
What?
and I'm looking at Ian thinking he's very
what is-
talented pop
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I thought you were saying bald gay guy.
Yeah. And on the bald gay guy topic, what's your other big musical interest, Ian?
Eurovision.
Eurovision, and you feel
There
like
must
you
be
have
something from Eurovision.
I was very jealous of Richard Arnold last week.
being out there in Tel Aviv. Although we come
He's
down in
big
a few
in Tel
points,
Aviv.
there was he is massive. We got
came
even
last,
lower
and then we
though.
had points knocked
Yeah,
off.
we had points
There was
knocked
a re-adjudication on Belarus's dodgy panel
Oh,
of
my
whatever
God.
happened there. What would
Maybe
be your?
his song should sum up our political situation because it's that desperate. Do you have an idea?
Well, I do have an idea. It is the 1972 Luxembourg entry to
Good Lord.
Eurovision.
This is
by-
really going to test our sound
This is by
department.
Vicky
Good luck,
Leandros.
boys and girls.
People sing nothing else.
Oh no, she's started to wind it back. We're going
I'll
to
go
start.
Wind it back,
And
wind it back.
Stuart, you've got to
right.
follow our professional here.
Come on.
Okay.
La 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 la.
Ready?
Go for
Oh,
it.
going to go further. You might have to come back halfway through. This is going very well.
Don't-
I
It's not-
know.
it's a
Great
bit like our
boys.
entry to Eurovision, isn't it?
There's a reason why live
he's
music doesn't
flexible.
happen on
Should we
TV.
do it without
Go on, let's
the
go.
video
Let's
then?
go. Go on, Ian. You just do it.
Come what may, I will love you forever, and forever my heart belongs to you.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. We'll take that.
Thank you.
Seemed very apt that it was Luxembourg entry as well. Lots of
Maybe
people
10
going on.
years' time, people will be singing Michael Rice's entry. You never know on
I doubt
Luxembourg
it very
television.
Stephen on
much.
Twitter says The Who, get out, stay out. Brenda on Twitter,
Get
madness.
out straight, stay out,
Stay out.
strut your funky stuff. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that one.
Oh, isn't it? Oh.
Is it no? Is it not? No, that was The Who. Yeah.
That's not the Who.
Brenda on Twitter says madness, embarrassment.
Becky
Kim
says the final countdown.
Oh, that's
yes,
good.
that's a good one.
That's
Kim
a
on
really
Twitter,
good one.
Leslie Gore, it's my party and I'll cry if I want to.
Oh, Boys to Men, Enter
No,
the
that's
Road.
mine.
That's yours. You're having that one.
Oh, okay.
Bob Marley, No Woman, No Cry. That's from Sonia. There's lots of ideas out there.
Aren't there?
I mean,
We could do the
definitely
whole
need a
of the rest of the
mashup.
show.
Brexit.
Yeah.
Just doing a bit of karaoke, couldn't we, really?
Good too.
it was only a matter of
Good too.
time.
What's your karaoke song?
My karaoke Jailhouse Rock. Something like that. You can shout, essentially. Something you can shout. Either that or EMF, Unbelievable.
I want it that way.
Of course
Tell
it
me
is.
why.
Tell me why
why
ain't nothing but a heartache.
Oh my gosh.
Ain't nothing but a mistake.
Tell me why.
Do you know what? When we were talking about this morning, we said, dare we ask Iain and Jacqui? They're serious commentators.
And then they're off.
They
You don't
want
stop
to
them.
embrace this. They're now singing
Do
Boys
you know
to Men
who I used to
songs.
be?
Oh, there we go.
Do you know who Ian wants to be? More importantly. Do you know what? It's always great to get your opinions and your songs and your singing. Jacqui and Ian, thank you for joining us this morning. Keep those ideas coming in as well. I'm not sure we found the definitive one. I do like Brenda's Madness Embarrassment, though.
Oh,
Simon Moody Blues, Go Now. It's a throwback. My dad would like that one.